Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. This is not something probably you anticipated a year ago to think, gosh, wouldn't it be great sometime in 2012 if I could go be on a congressional hearing and just get berated publicly? Wouldn't that be just so fun? So I thank you for being here. And for Dr. Mitchell from Southwestern, I'm a Southwestern graduate. Honored to be able to have you here. I did not know that you were attending as Southwestern leader as well, so honored that you are here as well to be able to represent the institution that I also am an alumni of. I've been fascinated to be able to hear the testimony of what this hearing is about. I've heard this hearing is about trying to prevent women from getting contraceptives and women's health. That is not what this hearing is about. That's a twisting off to try to say that this is about some barbaric group trying to limit access of women to health. That's not what this hearing is about. I've had the implication that this hearing is about the fact that government is more compassionate than the church, that they care more about people than the church does, and that there are obvious needs here, and the church is so out of step with culture that they don't know the issues of medication, and so the government's more compassionate. I've even heard that this is about whether you'll be jailed or not. It's an interesting comment to realize that there's a fine coming down on your organization of multi-millions of dollars if you don't behave according to the administration's wishes. Now, that creates an interesting conversation we might be able to have at another moment, in that all of you represent nonprofit institutions. Is that correct? Yeah. Do you pay federal taxes? No. None of you are from institutions because you're a nonprofit institution. Do you realize the administration has said publicly numerous times that the penalties involved in the President's health care plan are not penalties, they're fines. I'm sorry, they're not fines, they're taxes. Well, if that's so, my recommendation to you, of course I'm not an attorney, if these penalties are to be considered taxes, not penalties, and you're a nonprofit organization that pays no taxes, perhaps these things do not apply to you then, because you pay no tax. Now, if they want to argue in front of the Supreme Court that these are penalties, not taxes, which apparently they're set up in March to argue that they are taxes, and that they have the power to tax, then it will be interesting to see how the administration splits that hair as well. I've heard today that this is an attack on the administration about religious liberties. Well, I don't agree, though there are areas that we could discuss about Hosanna Tabor and the administration fighting all the way to the Supreme Court to try to be involved in the hiring of ministers, which the Supreme Court in a rare 9-0 disputed the administration and said ministers have the ability to be able to hire, or churches have the ability to be able to hire ministers as they choose. We could discuss how the Army is choosing to try to go in and edit the sermons of their chaplains. But today, this hearing is about, can this administration or any administration say, I know your doctrine, but I have a different doctrine, and you will change your doctrine to my doctrine, or I will fine you. That's what today is about. Can any administration step into a church and to say, I disagree with your doctrine, you will change it to mine? Now, I have a historical question for that, and Dr. Mitchell, I'm going to pick on you because I'm a Southwestern grad as well. In 1800, this was referenced earlier, Thomas Jefferson wrote an interesting letter to Danbury Baptists, actually, and made a reference that has been used over and over again about the wall of separation between church and state. He was assuring Danbury Baptists that the state would not go after the church and its doctrines and its teachings. Am I correct or incorrect on that?
Yes, you are.
Would you like to allude to any of that at all about that particular letter that's been referenced a lot?
Well, the intent was to protect the church from the state.
From the state, not protecting the state from the church.
That's right.
So, the other Dr. Mitchell, you want to comment on that as well?
I would, and I should disclose that I'm also a Southwestern Seminary alumnus.
Well, we're loaded here. This may be the first time in congressional history 3 Southwestern grads are in the same room. So.
In our offices at the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, there is a portrait that hangs above the fireplace of John Leland, who was the Baptist minister who had entree to that discussion with the Danbury Baptists and our early founders. Religious liberty is a Baptist principle through and through, And I'm happy to say we have had historically a contribution to make in that area.
Was that doctrine intended, again, or was that letter intended to say to the folks of the Danbury Baptist Association, we will make sure as a federal government we're not intruding on your religious rights?
Yes, sir.
That's absolutely right.
Any other comments on that before I yield back my time? With that, thank you, gentlemen, very much for being here. I'm honored to be able to have your time here and to be able to be here to express this on this key issue. With that, I yield back.